And thank you to the NSBs who came here. Maybe someone from NSB BSOC, but that's okay too. I think most of you here will be from NSB ISCF. So thank you everyone for coming today. As you guys will probably know, my name is Michael Lee. Some will know me from, like, I guess let's call it sponsoring NSB BSOC. Some will know me from, sponsoring the recent ISCF camp. But yeah, I'm in the flesh today. As Vincent has said, I graduated here in 2014. And today I really wanted to talk about money. I understand you guys are going through, the book of Luke, which is a great series, got great gospel. And given my experience, this is not meant to be a sermon, but it's really just meant to be, I think, a personal testimonial in the context of the passage that you guys are studying today, which is predominantly about money. So thanks, Tyrone, for reading that. Next slide. Sorry. Oh, one. Sorry. What?
Move the arrow to the upper side of the screen.
Oh yeah. Oh, I see. Oh, okay. That's how it works. Yeah, cool. Sorry. Okay. So as an introduction, I'm gonna keep this quick. So I graduated here in 2014 in North Sydney Boys. A lot of the school has changed. Miss Hughes is not Miss Hughes anymore. It's Miss Ferguson, which just had a great meeting with recently before coming here. As some of my background, because some of you guys may wonder, who's this guy coming here to speak today about money? I'm very passionate about money and business. I studied commerce at UNSW, and now I'm a chartered financial analyst charter holder. Basically, I deal with numbers. That's all you guys don't know. My professional work is working in a hedge fund, or what we call a money manager. So we manage money for people, mums and dads, companies, and we try to make more money for them, by picking stocks. So my job is really going to the stock market and picking stocks and trying to make more money for our clients. That's what I do as a day job. Only as a shout out, I also have a part-time job working as the CFO and the Chief Financial Officer of Atlas Academia, which is a STEM-based social enterprise that does United World Sciences. And I'm also an investor in Sydney Science College, which is Sydney's first STEM private high school, for what it's worth. That's a bit about me. To kind of tell you about my background for why I'm here today, talking about money. And so, I guess about what I do. We started in July 2015 at NSB. We have a team of about 35 people just picking stocks and trying to manage about $10 billion in money. That's the right number. That's not wrong. So that's 9 zeros, I think. And we should obviously try to generate a return over time for our investors. So just as a quick raise of hands, do you guys know any of these company logos? Raise your hands. Yeah, familiar? Meta, Tencent, SAP, Microsoft. Yeah, these are all the kinds of companies that we invest our clients' money into to hopefully make more money in the future. Now, why am I bringing this story up? Just for a sec. Imagine that you are me for a second. It's February 2020, so this is 3 years ago. Might be a bit young for some of your sevens, but imagine you're me as a stock picker or an analyst. And we're a part of a good team, managing $8 billion at the time. And, part of a team of 20 analysts, we've been doing well. It's great. We're making money. But little did you know what happens after February 2020. As, in that year, we had made about, let's call it 22%. In that 1 year. So call it, if you had $10 billion, an extra 22% is like 2.2 billion, right? And the machine is chugging along fine. Yeah, no worries. But all of a sudden, you see something like this. Basically, a big drawdown, of about 20%, in fact. And it was COVID, right? If you guys remember at the time, people. All of a sudden there was this disease from Wuhan in China that infected the rest of the world, and we ended up in, lockdown, right? And actually, stock markets were also dropping in a big way. In fact, what do you do? Obviously, before I get to that, the amount of money that was gone was actually $8 billion at the time. It went down to 6.4 billion. So within 1 month, we had lost $1.6 billion. So just try to imagine the gravity of the situation. If you think about the math, right? You guys are all smart NSBs. That's 20% gone in 1 month. Another 4 months and you're zero. Yeah? Makes sense? Another 1.6 times 4, you get down to zero. So this is big trouble. And at the time I was living alone. My parents were on the Ruby Princess cruise. I didn't know what to do. I obviously worried. In another 4 months we'd be gone if the market kept going down like that, or our fund kept going down like that. $8 billion would be zero. So what do? I did not know what to do. But as a Christian, one of the things that I had taken away is, if you don't know what to do, you go back to the Bible, and and when you go back to the Bible, you pray. And so that's what I did. I didn't know what to do at the time with my team. And so I prayed for God, not for the money to come back, but I prayed similar to King Solomon. If any of you have read 1 Kings, 2 Kings, for wisdom, in knowing what to do and trusting that God would take care of me. And so that's what I did. And so why am I telling you this story? Because I think the very next day I was inspired by God. I slept peacefully at night, and it was actually the very next day that I decided to tell my team to start buying technology stocks at the time. All of them had dropped like flies, but I told them to buy stocks like Microsoft, Meta, like Google. So we bought a lot of these stocks. This is just one example. Roku was just another one of those companies where they do TV. They sell TV stuff, but you knew everyone was going to be at home watching TVs. So that's why I told them to pick it. And actually, we bought $50 million of that at the time at $80 a share. And in the end, we actually sold it at $320 a share. So we actually made about $150 million just on that one decision that I told them to make. So, why am I telling you this? Is because at the end of the day, I think the key lesson that I've taken away from all this is that the Bible tells us that there's nobody that we can depend on except God. And in the Bible verses that have just been read by Tyrone, there are 2 parts to it of that story. The first part is about, there's a parable of the rich fool, a moral story that Jesus tells to a man who's asking what to do to get more inheritance. And then there's the second part to the passage, which is not to worry. So I wanted to dissect some of the verses that had just been written well by Tyrone. So, I promise I won't read all of this in the interest of time. But, in the first passage that we have, there was a man who asks for, how do I get more inheritance? I think at the time, if you're in Israel, the fact of the matter was that usually money goes to the eldest. So in this story, he probably was the youngest brother, and he was trying to get some money from the older brother. But Jesus obviously tells a story about, no matter what you collect, in the end, it all perishes and fades away. And I just wanted to highlight 2 verses, if I may, that I took away from this. The first is that Jesus said, watch out, be on your guard against all kinds of greed, because life does not consist in the abundance of possessions. And the second verse is, this is how it will be with whoever stores up things for themselves, but is not rich towards God. For me, personally, when I think about this story, God says that, the things that we have prepared, whose will they be? I think at the end of the day, no matter what we store for ourselves, it all fades. And this actually echoes another passage that hopefully some of you as Christians may know, in the book of Ecclesiastes in the Old Testament, which is that I hated all my toil in which I toil under the sun, saying that I must leave it to the man who will come after me. So you see it all the time in the world. There are people who will devote their lives, to accumulating money or material possessions, maybe Louis Vuitton bags or, expensive items. And that's all that they're devoted to. But the question that Jesus asks is, what happens to it all when you perish or die? And it gets left behind to others, right, who may not appreciate what you've just done and collected. And so I think the key takeaway here is that the accumulation of what we have in this world, whether that's money, material possessions, none of it lasts. Obviously, my story of Antipodes, where our team was collecting, or raising $8 billion, that doesn't always last. It can just fade away. And so this is the first point I wanted to leave you guys with, is that accumulating material wealth doesn't last. And the second point, I think, from that passage that I took away from is that because we know that accumulating wealth in this world is not important, what is, and that is the focus towards God. And in focusing on God, that allows you to be a blessing to others. We know that from the gospel itself, that we are called to be a blessing, or that we are blessed, and we are called to be a blessing in the lives of others. You can read that in Psalm 62, verse 10. But we also know from another passage, Proverbs, that the one who gives freely grows all the richer. I think one of the other great passages that I think about when reading this parable is that in 2 Corinthians, we know that God is able to provide to you with every blessing in abundance, so that having all content in all things at all times, we may abound in every good work. One of the points I want to make that Vincent has also rightly pointed out to me is that to be clear that these are God's blessings directed to Christians, so people who believe in God. And we know that from the passage that was just said in 2 Corinthians. But also, that doesn't preclude the fact that God is also able to bless who he chooses to bless, to be clear. So even if they are evil, and you can see that in Ecclesiastes chapter 7. But I think the takeaway from all of this is to know that we are blessed, as we're told about in the Bible, but in being a blessing to others, it means that, yes, we are now able to give more generously to others. And so one of my own personal examples I want to highlight is, do any of you guys give to your churches that you attend? Raise your hands if you do. Yeah, a few, that's okay. Yeah. Offering is often we call it. And my own personal example is back when I was in high school, I never gave as well. And obviously it depends on circumstance. If you're a bit younger, maybe you're not able to give, that's fine. But for me, I like to use the example that when I was in university, I was giving $20 a fortnight to my own church, the Pro Baptist. And now, as I've gone older and have made more money, I've now give about $80 a fortnight or $40 a week. And I think these kinds of habits are good to develop when you're young, to be able to think about giving generously, because our focus is on God, not on money. And that doesn't necessarily mean giving in monetary sense, right? Like, I think we all give in different ways. Some of us like to volunteer in our local charities. Other people like to, give up their time and energy to help their friends, right? I think giving isn't just about money, but I think the idea is that we're called to give generously in whatever way. Money, energy, time. So I think that's definitely a great takeaway from the first part of that passage in the parable of the rich fool. So what about the second part? There's this part which talks about we should not worry. So I think Tyrone's read it very well, and I would only like to flag certain verses that I took away from this. I'm trying not to make this a sermon. The only one I would say here is the first part, where Jesus says, "Do not worry about about your life, what you'll eat, or about your body and what you'll wear." I will read that next part. Life is more than food, and body more than clothes. And the second part that I will read is a treasure in heaven that will never fail, where no thief comes near and no moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. I'm just going to elaborate on those points, if I may, because this passage is quite a difficult one. At least when I first read it, I don't know when you guys heard it, if it was like why did Jesus talk about the greediness of this rich fool and gave a parable, and now he's talking to his own disciples and saying, yeah, don't worry. I think the two are not so dissimilar. That's an English word that Miss Sullivan used to teach me in NSB. But anyways, is she still around, Miss Sullivan? Right? Okay. Sorry, I digress. Okay. Before your time. Greed and worry are actually not too different, in other words. I think greed is about not getting enough, and being worried is that there is never enough. I think the key takeaway there is that greed and worry are both about things not enough, right? And both leave out the idea that the focus should be on God. And much like the verse that was read in the "Do Not Worry" passage, that even the birds that God cares for can survive and eat. How much more does He care for His children, His sons, who are like God? We're taught not to worry because it doesn't accomplish anything for us. But I guess as a Christian, you will know from the story of Jesus that everything was already accomplished by Jesus at the cross. And so I think we're reminded day after day to continually rely on Jesus, who is the perfecter of our faith. We're not told to worry. Now, something to be very careful about here is when it comes to worry, that's something that certainly we shouldn't take for granted. People have symptoms for people can exhibit symptoms for worrying, and that's absolutely fine. I would like to say that I think the focus shouldn't be so much on worry, but should be on God instead. And enjoy all this together, in the interest of time. The reason why I tell you this personal story of mine is because, much like the rich fool, which I was, at the time, I was very arrogant, managing, that $8 billion of money that we had in the fund and thinking it would go on forever. $8 billion would be 10 and 12 billion. But when you realize that things like this can be taken away very dramatically and very quickly. That money that we had, that $8 billion, became $6.4 billion in a very short space of time, 1 month, because of COVID. I didn't see it coming. I don't think many people saw it coming. But things like that can be taken away. Much like the rich fool that Jesus has warned about, where he said, all of this you can lose if you die. And so, when that happened to me, what happens when you have all that taken away from you is that you start to worry, right? Like me. And what do you do then? I think obviously my own story has a lot of parallels to this passage. Remembering to depend on God, who is the perfecter of our faith, but also is the only person who can give us true satisfaction. None of this worldly earth stuff. And even this is me saying this as a money manager, who manages a lot of money with our team. We realize that, none of that worry goes away. Like when you lose $1.6 billion, do you walk around the block? Do you, freak out? Do you, chuck a tantrum? For us as Christians, or for me, I pray and depended on God. And I think in whatever circumstances we have, we should remember that we're not alone. That God is always with us, and that He is a good God, and that we may not know what the future holds, but we do know that God holds the future. And so I'd like to hope to encourage you guys all today that this personal story about money has, obviously it's a passage about money, but it's a lot broader than that, right? It's about whether you are a student who's studying for exams, or if maybe, you're not making friends, and you're feeling alone. Just know that that there is a good God out there who cares and loves for you. This doesn't, isn't just about fund managers. It's about students, parents, teachers, anyone, to hear this good news. And so, with that, I think in doing so, I think you get a deeper and humbler conviction towards God being in control. And with that, thank you all for listening, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Big thanks to Michael once again for coming back to give us the talk. That was really helpful. I think even being a Christian for so long to hear such a great witness in his life. We do have roughly around 5 minutes, so if we have any questions we'd like to ask Michael, it could be a good time for that. Are there any questions? I guess I have a question. I don't mind. It's not a challenging one.
Go.
Since you talked about like, oh, if this is the perspective of a Christian to hold that money in the grand scheme of things isn't important in that way because the God who loves us and cares for us will carry us through either way. What made you get into a world that's all about money? Yeah.
Oh yeah, great question. So, for those who may not have heard, like, yeah, we're told, that money is not the most important thing in the Bible. And I guess my choice of going down into a world that is engulfed by money may seem counter to some of you, rightfully so. The reality is that for a lot of us here who grew up as Christians and end up graduating and going into the workforce, a lot of us won't end up becoming church pastors, right? It'd be great if we all did. But the reality is there is a mission field out there of workers who don't know about Jesus and who don't know about the gospel or the Bible and the good news there. And so I think it's, from my perspective, the way I see it is that there is definitely an underserved area, which is in my world of finance, where there's a lot of people who don't know about the message of Jesus. And so in some ways, I'm merely just another evangelist, right? Not going into church, but just working in a secular field where there are people who need to know about Jesus but don't. And yeah, I think for a lot of you guys, I would encourage you to think about that the same way when you go into work, or university, or even at school, frankly. Like, it is a mission field, right? Where every day you're surrounded by people who are not Christian, and maybe just don't know the message of Jesus. But if I could kind of redo my time all over again at ISCF, I would certainly wish I had used my opportunities being around my friends and acquaintances to talk about Jesus, and obviously in the right place, right time. But certainly, yeah, it's no different at my workplace. I think that's where I see I can continue to be a mission worker. And I saw it as an underserved area, and that's why I did.
Any last questions? Any question?
It can be anything. Yeah.
Sorry, this is a bit like tangential. What sort of career pathway do you take
to get into this sort of thing? Yeah, money management, let's call it. Yeah, it's a great question. This is more of a BSOC driven question now. That's fine. Yeah, put a spin on it as well. Okay, so yeah, I think I did, it may surprise you, like most people would, like, I did commerce, but I actually never did economics or business studies in HSC. But I did do maths, English, physics, chemistry, so a lot of the Asian four, shall we say. But I figured that for me, like, I enjoyed maths and English and the blend of the two. So that's actually why I chose business. So I think if there's any of you guys here who enjoy maths and English, I think that blend is really great for something like commerce, because not so sciencey, but it's like a bit of writing, a bit of numbers. And so I think that's a great pathway in. And then in terms of how to think about, getting into money management, my philosophy is in being a good steward of other people's capital, like other people's money, because other people are giving you money to manage, right? And like God says in Genesis, it's he has entrusted Adam to work the ground, but entrusted the earth to him, so you have to do it wisely. It's the same thing. You can't manage other people's money if you don't know how to manage your own money. Yeah. So my view is, if you are going to learn about money management, you need to learn how to manage money wisely for yourself. For me, that was actually going to the stock market and picking stocks. Yeah. Never risk what you can't will to lose. But yeah, I think you have to do that before you can be comfortable to say that I'm willing to take other people's money and manage it then, right? Yeah. So that's what I would suggest. Yeah. There's a great website that I have.
Oh yeah, I went on your website.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
On michaellee.io.
There we go.
Yeah. Right, talk a bit about that stuff.
Oh, well, maybe next time.
We don't, but Atlas Academia does.
There we go. Just last minute, also I just wanted to plug, look, if what you heard today from Michael, if there's anything that you still have questions about, ask some friends around you, preferably if they come to ISCF. Also, I'm sure I'm more than happy to pass on any questions you guys have to Michael, and I can maybe help be the communicator through that. So unfortunately, that's all the time we have, and I want to invite Josh to help end us in prayer just really quickly, and then we're gonna.
Let's pray, guys. Dear Lord, thank you that Michael could come today and speak clearly. Thank you that we could dive into your word. You could help us to understand how to live in light of you. And Lord, I pray that we rely on you in everything we do and we understand how important your son is. Amen.
Alrighty. Thanks, Michael, once again. Everyone, bring all the chairs back on. Thank you.
Thank you.